Right. You've certainly given us your position, Mr. Secretary, on the tax cuts. My position is that they should be extended for all tax brackets. I believe we agree, however, that certainty is required. Mr. Hensarling has raised this, Mr. Castle and I raise it again. In the administration's judgment, when should we engage in certainty on the tax cut issue? In other words, should we do that now while we're still in session, or should we wait until after the election to the lame duck session of Congress?
That's really a question for the leadership on both the Democratic and Republican side.
And I think it's a question for the administration. Does the President and do you as Secretary of the Treasury have a position on that?
My view, as I've said before many times, and the President has said this, is that since there is very broad agreement on the merits of extending the middle-class tax cuts that, again, go to 98% of working Americans and small businesses, that why not act to extend those as soon as we can? And we can still have a debate about what to do about the rest of them, but why hold those hostage to the debate we have to have, again, on whether it makes sense for us to go out and borrow $700 billion, add to our future deficits to extend those high-income tax cuts.
So could you be a little more definite in what you believe the time period should be?
Not on the legislative question. Again, that's a question where the leadership of both houses on both sides would have to come to a judgment.
Regarding your indication of your belief of borrowing $700 billion for the top two brackets, what percentage of income is that? You indicate 2 or 3% of taxpayers. What percentage of total income is that?
Well, obviously it's a larger share of total income, but the right way to think about it economically, I think, is to look at the overall effects on the economy relative to GDP of extending them, and I think there are...
What percentage of income is it? Do you know?
It would be a very small fraction of GDP, which is overall national income, but I think the right way to think about it, if I could say, is that I think it's very hard to find an economist that would argue that if the economy needs more support, and we're a country with not infinite resources, that is the best use of...
Well, Mr. Ortzag, your former colleague, has indicated he favors extending all of the tax cuts for 2 years.
No, first of all, I won't speak to his opinion, but our view is that the best thing to do for the country is to extend those tax cuts for middle-class Americans and small businesses as quickly as we can. And if we believe the economy needs additional reinforcement, as we do, then let's find a way to give additional incentives to businesses to invest here in the United States. Let's do that as soon as we can.
Thank you. Madam Chair, is it permissible for me to place in the record the op-ed piece of Mr. Ortzag that was in the New York Times on this issue?
Without objection, such as...
Thank you. In another area, Mr. Secretary, Professor Warren has been named an assistant to the President. I understand that. Is she technically a person who is on the staff of the White House, or on your staff, Mr. Secretary, or on the staff of both the White House and the Department of the Treasury?
She is an advisor to the Secretary of the Treasury. Her office is in the Treasury, but she is also has this additional title as Assistant to the President.
So, sir, does she report to you, or to the President, or to both of you?
Well, as the dual title implies, and as the President made clear, she reports to both the Secretary of the Treasury and the President of the United States.
And do you favor an early appointment of a director so that that appointment might go appropriately before the Senate?
I do, and it will.
And could you define with a little greater precision what your definition of early might be?
Early, in the sense that I think it's the best interest of getting this agency up and running to have a confirmed director in place as soon as we can.
During this session of Congress, or would it be in the next session of Congress?
Again, that's sort of a question for the leadership, but as I said, I think early would be...
I think it's a question for the President and the administration, since it's the President who has the constitutional responsibility to appoint the director.
Does, and he will meet that responsibility.
At an early date?
At an early date.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much.